Hi, my name is Ann Fisher. I'm a nurse in the cardiac cath lab now. I've been a nurse since 1988, so that's 24 years. I'm also a nurse in the Air National Guard. I've been an ICU nurse most of my career. My idea is for a program that would integrate standards of care in our patient documentation so that, for example, Medicare has requirements that things are done a certain way, and sometimes that documentation is missed, then they won't reimburse for that. So if our electronic charting prompted us to document, say, for instance, a Foley catheter should be DC'd on post-update 2. If the Foley catheter was documented on the third day, then you would get a prompt like a pop-up or a macro, or just open the next box for your documentation to document the exception why that Foley catheter is still in, or prompt you to get that Foley catheter DC'd. Other things it might do would be decubitus ulcer care. If we have standards of care for each, when we stage an ulcer, what the care should be, then that plan of care would open up and we could address that that's what was done with the patient, or we could chart an exception when that needs to be documented as well. Also on a decubitus ulcer or other things like that, if it required a wound consult when we noticed a decubitus ulcer, then as soon as you click decubitus ulcer, it would open up a link to a consult and you could consult the wound care team. And those things wouldn't get missed if they were always linked. Another thing might be when the nurse is assigned a patient assignment, anytime there's something overdue or new orders, if you logged in for that patient, it might show you, here's a new order, here's a medication that's overdue, so that you could address that and not have to go look it up later. I think there's a lot of things like that that we could build into our documentation to help us, to guide us in our documentation. Some things might help us to deliver better care so that we don't miss those things. And sometimes it may be for financial reasons, because face it, in our healthcare system, financial is important. And I know Medicare and insurance companies won't pay for care sometimes if everything required is not documented in the patient's chart. So let's make those things a fill in the blank that we have to document when we address that patient's record. And hopefully it would be orderly and not take us somewhere else, just a drop-down menu or a pop-up that you could click, yes, that's what I did, and move on, instead of making it cumbersome for the nurse to go fill out another form or track down something else. If it's built into the system and it's easy to address, we would document that care and we would be consistent knowing what the standards are. It also could be a legal issue. They always tell us if it's not documented, it's not done. And there are some things that we do so readily that we forget to document them, like the nurse-to-nurse handoff when we transfer a patient. It's being emphasized more. We're making sure that our handoff is to another RN when we transfer a patient, but sometimes it isn't documented who you gave that report to or where it was. So if it was a simple fill in the blank in the documentation, it would always be documented that there was a nurse-to-nurse face-to-face handoff. That's the kind of thing I would like to see in our electronic charting.